Hunters and Unicorns, the 2020 Mastery Mission. In this bonus recording, we're absolutely honoured to welcome Andy Whyte back to talk to us and build on the first recording where we spoke about some of the most common misconceptions of what MEDDICC isn't, but also how MEDDICC is such an effective qualification mindset. And I suppose in this bonus recording, Andy, what would be really good to understand is perhaps your journey. How did you actually enter this world, and how did you come about actually eventually writing the book?
Sure. Yeah. Well, what a delight. I was a bit sad that I thought the podcast had finished. And then you guys said we're going to do a bonus session. So I get to spend more time with you and your audience. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think like so many people, I think most people I meet in sales never grew up saying I want to be a salesperson when I'm older, right? That's not a thing. And I actually dropped out of school at 15. I don't have a single qualification to my name. And I kind of what I thought I was going to do was work in theatre. That's what I thought I was going to do. Then I realised I'm neither talented nor good looking enough to have a career on stage or screen or anything like that. So I said to my brother, who I really look up to, like what should I do? And he said to me, he's like, well, my friends like you, which I've never really asked him what that meant, but I don't think he meant it positively. My friends like you go into sales. And so I literally went on to what we will know as the Job Centre website, which is, it says what it is on the tin. And I applied for jobs, and I had an interview literally 30 minutes later to sell double glazing door to door. And that was how I got into sales. And then, I kind of had this feeling that I needed to get into proper sales, like B2B sales. And so I pushed my way into that, started out in what would be known today as an SDR role, but actually it was called then telesales. Didn't have a posh title. And I just kind of, like so many people, just worked my way up. And it was actually SDRing for ERP software. And then I sold e-commerce, and I kind of moved into the field. And did that for a while, a startup, and then found my way to Oracle. So from sort of a 6-person bootstrap startup to Oracle was I don't think you could get any further from one extreme to the other. And all the while, I would say that as a salesperson, I was working hard. I was very coachable. I was reading all the books, thought I was doing all the right things. But particularly at Oracle, I just kind of had this, what I now call like deal uncertainty. It's just like this feeling of, I'm doing okay performance-wise, but I don't really know. I'm often surprised, right, by winning or losing. I have my gut, which I can rely on, but I kind of miss out on. I had this feeling of uncertainty, this feeling of like sales should click, right? It's going to click at some point, and everything will fall into place, and I'll know how to do everything perfectly. But it never really happened. Though, don't get me wrong, I was doing some good numbers. And then I had the opportunity to go to Sprinkler, which I jumped at, and at Sprinkler is where I learned MEDDICC, as it is there. And for me, it kind of was this, it's almost like epiphany moment where I was like, wow, okay, this is what I've been missing. All like this feeling of it not clicking, it's all started to click. And what was like uncertainty turned to confidence. And what I'll say about it is that it's not that I started, it helped me win more deals from a perspective of made me like a better salesperson. But what it did was it helped me identify where I was strong on deals, so I could double down on those things, and it identified where I was weak, so that I could kind of work on those things. Or if the opportunity was too weak, it told me that I should qualify out. So that's kind of how I came to know and love MEDDICC. And what was interesting was the next role I took, again as an individual contributor after that, was at another company who, part of the pros and cons list on a pro for them was they used MEDDICC. I turned up and it was like a 30-minute session in the onboarding. And I came back to Europe and it was never really spoken about again. It was just these kind of derelict fields in Salesforce that no one ever used. But I carried on using it. So I always think that was a good experience for me, because it showed me that even if no one else around me is using it, I can still get some value from using it, right? And I did, and it really helped me there. And then I moved into sales leadership, and I didn't have any kind of bias towards MEDDICC. It was just something that was in my playbook, right? And you know what it's like when you turn up day one at a new company of established sales team. You're kind of in learn and listen mode. And I was looking around, and trying to understand, what's the thing that's going to be most important for me to deploy from my playbook here? Is it going to be that we need to get on top of pipeline generation? Is it going to be that we need to work on, closing better? Does the sales process itself need some evaluation? And actually, within literally the very first meeting of my tenure at that company, it became clear that I needed MEDDICC, and I'll tell you why. The week started, as they often do, with a forecast call that was in person, and I wasn't taking it. It was my first day, but one of the founders was taking the forecast session, and he asked about a deal that was in forecast to close at the end of the month. So we're talking like less than 4 weeks away. And the salesperson said this. They said, "Yeah, still looking good." And so the founder drilled down a little bit. Said, "Well, last week you said you hadn't heard from them for a week. Have you had an update?" And he said, "No, but I've got some good yesware." And yesware, for those that don't know, is one of those sales tech tools that sits on your email and tells you if people are reading your emails. So his update on the forecast was, "Yeah, keep this in forecast. Even though I haven't spoken to them for 2 weeks and they're ghosting me, they've been reading my emails." Right? So it's like, it's not a no. It's just, and yeah, so that was, and so then came a ton of sales velocity from using MEDDICC, and the numbers were great and things really started to pick up. So I became a big fan of MEDDICC from a sales leader perspective. And then the same situation kind of happened in the next sales leadership role, and so on and so on. It just became, not again, but I wasn't trying to lead with it. It was just that it was always the most high value thing I could do upon arriving at a new company. And then, then I started to realize that I was getting all this incredible value from using MEDDICC. And I would look around and I would see, all these great companies that we know, like Snowflake, MongoDB, the Data Robots, Datadogs, all of these great companies, the most, we associate having the most elite sales teams and the most elite salespeople, and they're all using MEDDICC or MEDDPICC. And I was like, well, why is nobody talking about this? There's a few sort of lifestyle businesses. Obviously, there's great companies like Force Management and Sales MEDDICC Group that really do well with it. But there wasn't many people talking about it outside of those companies. So I thought I should talk about it a bit. So I started blogging about it, and I used to get I write a blog post about hiring, and no one would read it. Like, I'd write a blog post about MEDDPICC, and I'd get lots of positive feedback. So I thought, I'll write a book. And I don't know about you guys, but at that point, I had no intention of writing a book. It was just like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. And in my head, I was like, it probably end up in being more blog posts. But then COVID happened, had all this time on my hands, got the book out. And even then, the only reason I was writing it was to be honest, I wanted to be a CRO. And I was just, how can I accelerate my pathway there? And I thought, talking more about what I knew about MEDDICC would help along that path. And then everything sort of took a side turn when the book came out, and people just wanted to talk to me about MEDDICC. And I saw the opportunity to help organizations with the enablement and the operationalization of MEDDICC. So that's kind of how I've ended up where I am today. And I feel like I've been talking for a really long time. So I'm going to pause there and let you guys to speak.
Andy, it's an absolutely fascinating story. Do you remember the day when you successfully went in with the right mindset of MEDDICC, not as an afterthought, but actually went in it really thinking about what you're going in and really thinking about MEDDICC? Do you remember that day and seeing the results of it and that aha moment?
Yeah, a bit better than that, actually. I remember coming out of a meeting and thinking about, I should probably think about this in relation to MEDDICC. I hadn't gone into the meeting thinking about it with MEDDICC. And I realized it was like the wrong way round. I was like, wow, if I'd have thought about these things before the meeting, I'd have had such a better meeting. And so that made me think, all right, well, let's fix this. What's the next meeting? And I kind of applied it then. So I can remember it. But even then, I'm not going to tell some sort of glorious story about like it just sort of happened and I had an epiphany and there I was, I was all of a sudden gone from being a B player to an A player or something like that. It did take time, and that's okay. I think it's like people I think need to understand with MEDDICC. It's like it's not something you can just sort of learn. Oh, this is what the letters stand for, and now I'm a MEDDICC user. I think there's, I'm learning all the time still, even though, for the last 2 years, I've pretty much thought about nothing else professionally. I'm still learning tons and tons and tons, and there's still a ton more for me to learn. So I think about it as just like a we talked about this before, but like a mindset, a way of working, and you'll get better. But for me, yeah, I'd say it clicked, but it wasn't like binary. It wasn't like one day I was bad, one day I was good. It was definitely a progression.
Yeah. Did you find yourself being a lot more in control of what you're doing rather than it just being a bit of a finger in the air and testing the wind, so to speak?
Yeah, and I think like the way I feel that would be in like forecast calls and deal reviews. Where I always say this sort of joke, but it's like, you've got two options. You can either put your money, you're betting on which salesperson's going to win their deal, and the only thing you get to know is the two salespeople walk in. One of them spends 2 minutes telling you about their deal, and one of them spends 15 seconds telling you about their deal. Like, which one do you put your money on? And people always say the 15 seconds because they're like, if someone takes 2 minutes, there's probably 15 seconds of truth and the rest is all waffle, right? Or as they say in America, fluff, I think as they say. I recently learned that they don't say waffle in America. And I know a lot of your audience is in America. They're like, we eat waffles, we don't talk it.
I do want to go back to that move to Sprinkler. Were you aware of MEDDICC when you made that move, or was that something you were seeking? Just curious.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. The funny thing here, and there's two parts to this story that I think are really fun. The first is that when I was at the previous company before Oracle, actually, I had been headhunted to go for just an AE role, and I really geeked out on this role. Like, I mean, I properly geeked out. And the guy interviewing me actually commented that he thought I knew more about the company than he did, which was probably I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I knew within 30 seconds of being in that interview that I wasn't getting that job, right? But as part of that ridiculous amount of research and effort I put into preparing for that, I'd reached out to someone in the US who worked for that company and said, hey, look, I'm interviewing. What tips can you give me? And they replied after my interview and said, hey, I wouldn't bother. They only hire people from Oracle. So I kind of went, Oracle, like the database company? That's how I saw them at the time, right? And so that's how I ended up at Oracle, because I was like, if I want to go and work for that kind of cool company, I need to go and do my time at Oracle. Right. And that's exactly what happened. I went to Oracle for about a couple of years, did my time, got that kind of red logo on my resume, had some success. It was definitely, don't get me wrong, it's a good place. I learned a lot there, but it wasn't for me. And so when the Sprinkler opportunity came along, it was like, yeah, this is another cool company. And funny enough, I think Sprinkler was the 17th unicorn in tech. And it was like a week before I joined that was announced. Now, like, who's not a unicorn, right? But then, it was quite unique. So that's how I went then. And then the second part of this is funny as no, I hadn't heard of MEDDICC before. In fact, this still makes me laugh, and I kind of get sort of goosebumpy even thinking about this as a sort of a funny thing. Is that in my onboarding, called Splash in New York at Sprinkler, when we were being taught about MEDDICC, there was another guy that came into the room, and he was introduced as an AE that was working there in the East Coast team, and I didn't know this guy was called Richard Dunkel, and he just came in to kind of join the session. While someone else taught us about MEDDICC, and I later realized that's Dick Dunkel, right? Dick Dunkel, but he was just like, I mean, he was great, and he was adding value and golden nuggets as he always does. But like, come on, like if it's a MEDDICC onboarding session, the guy that invented it should be the one at the front doing it. So that always makes me laugh to think about that. I could have been taught MEDDICC by Dick Dunkel, but no, it was someone else who was great, and not knocking them at all, but it's just kind of funny. Imagine like playing, learning to play golf, and like Tiger Woods is like spectating you while some sort of PGA coach.
The board wasn't half bad either, and the leadership at Sprinkler as well. So obviously, it's an illustrious, right.
For sure.
So I suppose in terms of Andy, what's next? What's the big plan?
Yeah, great question. So I think what we help organizations with is that if you think that the problem I saw when I kind of really dug into the world of MEDDICC is that because it's open source and because kind of anyone can kind of lean in and use it, and because so many companies they love it, they want to use it, what you'd see is that they put MEDDICC on their job adverts. People, they're looking for people with MEDDICC abilities and skills and experience. And what I saw happening was that people go, well, MEDDICC, what's that? Just as I would have done, right, if I saw it on the sprinkler job advert, and I'd probably Google it, and I'd probably find, maybe a HubSpot article or maybe our website. I'd be like, right, what does M stand for? And I'd learn, I would learn what all the letters stand for. And I'd think, yeah, I know what this is. I don't know what it is at that stage. That's super high level, right? And so what I see is what we do is we help companies to really overcome that enablement challenge where they want their teams to all understand MEDDICC. That's what we do. We have like an online masterclass that helps with that. And then the next thing we're working on is really kind of how do you operationalize it? How do you bring it into everything you do? We're having a lot of real great conversations with other go-to-market teams. So how can marketing support the sales team with metrics? How can we use MEDDICC for SDR teams? How can we align all of these different departments? How can the product team use the live decision criteria to make decisions about their roadmap? How can product marketing make decisions about what things they focus on creating support for the field for, based on looking at why they're winning deals and why they're losing deals and all that kind of stuff? So really extending that common language across the entire go-to-market team. That's what we're busy on over the next year. And we've got a couple of things. One I can't talk about yet because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But I've been working on this for well over 18 months now, but it's been a long time coming. Something that's going to be really exciting. We've got MEDDICC coming up. You guys can have an exclusive on that actually if you like. So 8th of September, MEDDICC. A lot of people thought that we were going to be adding in a couple of letters because we did this kind of save the date MEDDICC, and people were like, well, what does the O and N stand for? It's MEDDICC conference, people. Come on, like I thought it was obvious. People have been DMing me really excited. What does the O stand for? Come on, man. I thought it was obvious. So yeah, we're going to do a conference for all things MEDDICC. That's coming up. We're just relaunching our community. Dick Dunkel's going to be doing kind of a chat with us on our community launch. We've got a new website coming, new branding. This isn't interesting to your audience, but I'm very excited about it. So yeah, lots of cool stuff coming.
Well, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Yeah. And as always, we've really enjoyed kind of spending time with you, and just to reinforce what we've previously said, you bring so much value to the community, and you've been a real trailblazer in really helping to kind of oxygenate this amazing world. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks, guys. I've loved it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. Really do appreciate your time. So again, to all of our viewers, all our audience, please do subscribe to our various channels, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. I'll ensure all the links are in the description below, but please stay tuned for more of the 2020 Mastery Session.